kak ja upravljam s ovim sad slajdovima? Čije to? Da. Pa mislim, prebacio sam tu, ali neće mi ići u desno.
Neće ići u desno? Ne znam kako radi taj slajd.
Možda ću morati ipak ja sve. Možda da makneš ovo live. Ili da se ja ulogiram, pa... Opa.
Neće ostati, pa ću. To će podlogirati poslije. Čovjek će to raditi. Samo si ga.
Aha, dobro. Nije bitno. Jel sad radi? Ok. Hoćemo krenut. Okay, hello everybody. Please take a seat. It's so nice to see you in person after a long time, especially for me. I haven't been on meetups for almost 2 years now. For today, there are 2 talks prepared. One is by Borna Matjanic, Fun with Symfony Console Commands, and the other one is from Ivan Herak, Jira Sucks Right. Tonight we are hosted at Netgen, and thank you very much, Netgen, for hosting us and providing us with space and drinks and food. And I'm going to let Ivo Lukac from Netgen now tell us something about their company. The floor is yours.
Hello. Can you hear me? Just a second. We still need the screen, just a second.
No.
Piše ispod da je spoj. Ne, input nije. Show displays.
To vidiš? Jes, a nema ništa.
Pokazuje samo ovo. Ali to na kraju, da pošalješ isto Heraka.
Morat ću.
Aj meni pošalje jer sam ja sljedeći.
Aj. Still problems with slides in 2022. Okay, I press that. Mhm.
Evo, izmirila me.
Ok. Evo kako nazad. Okay. Some technical problems as always. Happy to have you in Netgen after, I think, 2 years, or more than 2 years, we had the last Zagreb PHP meetup here. So after this devastating 2 years of not seeing people, now we're finally sitting together again. That's great. Welcome to Netgen. For people that don't know about us, we are a web development and design agency. It's actually 20 years this year, so we should celebrate somewhere in October, 20 years, which is quite a lot if you think about it. We do a lot of typical stuff like any web agency, from user experience and research to technical implementations and growth support, like SEO, SEM, and all that stuff. We tend to work with clients and partners for many years. We have clients, some clients are like 15 years with us. We also do a range of verticals. So we do also from e-commerce, financials, publishers, media companies, etc., etc. This came actually quite good in the pandemic, because we were not focused only on one sector. There were some companies in trouble if they were, working only for airline or tourism, for example. They got smashed quite a bit. We also organized the Web Summer Camp. This will be the 10th Web Summer Camp this year. It's in the making, so I hope in a couple of days you will know more about this year's Web Summer Camp. So this is quickly about us. I also would like to show you how we work. Maybe it's similar how you work in your company, but just quickly, this is something that we figured that this is a good principle, and then somehow we learned that there is such a concept. It's called double diamond principle. It's basically about when you do something, you actually first you want to research, go broad, do some discovery workshops, market research, stakeholder interviews, do customer journeys, etc. Then define what you need to do, create a prototype, test the prototype, and then start doing the visual design, a high fidelity prototype, again iterate and test, and then actually start doing some development. And if you think about the agile principles, this is not 100% agile. Agile would be that we actually start sprints somewhere here at the beginning, but from our experience, this is quite, let's say, doesn't work in reality. We need to actually first find out what should we do, and then start the agile process with the development. This might be different in your where you work, but this is what we discovered. It's the best. And then if you take this approach to how we organized internally, we have the UX team, we have the project management team, and then we have 3, maybe soon 4 teams that actually do the development. The UX team is involved in every project, the PMs are involved in every project, but then this one team takes the project and iterates. This could be probably very similar to your company as well. We do have a range of clients from Croatia, also Norway, Switzerland, Germany, Austria. This is mainly our kind of habitat over the years. From the technologies, this is maybe the most interesting slide for you. So what we do, somehow we do PHP in 2022, which is also quite surprising. There are so many new cool stuff going on, but we stick to PHP for some reason. I don't know why. We use Symfony full stack because otherwise that would be a really super hard thing to do everything in pure PHP. We also do a lot Easy Platform CMS. It's rebranded to Ibexa last year. We still call it Easy. Cilius, which is based on Symfony, like Ibexa as well. We also have our own product based on Symfony, Netgen Layouts. We use API platforms from time to time, also Symfony based. Akeneo product information management, also based on Symfony. So this is all based on Symfony. For some reason, we love Symfony. And we actually started to doing some WordPress. I know it's weird shit, but yeah, that's how it goes with clients. And then we also do a lot of these things that kind of you need. You know, you need a database, you need a web server, you need some temporary cache, you need all these accelerating stuff like Varnish, a range of CDNs. You need some workers, you need better search, because in PHP world there is not a good search system. We also use deployer and other deployment systems, and I added React and Vue.js because why not? And that's it. Our team, yeah, we are, I don't know if you know about this, but we one of the early Zagreb PHP founders, he called us many years ago, he called us, was it a sect or?
Sect, yes.
Yeah, cult. Yeah, because we have this average employment range is around 6 to 7 years, which in the IT industry is quite a lot.
Including students.
Including students. We have students here that are, I don't know, at 3-4 years already. So yeah. Yeah, currently we are searching for, of course, PHP and Symfony developers, because, yeah, and we actually searching also for a DevOps engineer. This is our first one, so if you know anyone who is a good DevOps, let us know. We have all the typical perks, you know, the hardware of your choice, education, open source, health and sport, a lot of good stuff here. But I would say the biggest here is this here on the top right, flexi work. You can work from, or people can work here, people can work from home, 1 day, 4 days, 4 days, 1 day, whatever they like. They can work from 7 in the morning, or they can start work at noon. I don't know. It's flexi. So this proved to be the best option, especially in last 2 years. I don't want to go in too much details. Let me know if you want to speak about this with me later. And I think that's it for me. I will no longer waste your time. Now my 2 colleagues will take over. Thank you.
Okay, hi all. Welcome to Netgen. My talk today is fun with Symfony console comments. Let's just talk shortly about me. I'm a PHP Symfony developer in Netgen, working here for about 3-4 years, and mostly back in work. So why Symfony console commands? The problem that I stumbled upon is that on ZgPHP meetups, mostly the same people come here every month, and the problem is that not a lot of junior developers come here. And I remember myself when I was junior developer, most of the topics were pretty much senior level and totally overwhelming. So I decided to create a talk with some, let's say, junior level theme. So what about Symfony console? It's the main console command tool for PHP. Almost every CMS and every framework use it that is built on PHP. It's really easy to use, easy to implement, easy to configure, and it can be used in the Symfony application, it can be used in standalone application or any other PHP application. As I said, most of the frameworks use Symfony console component, and all the cool kids are using it. So let's just jump into the code and let's see what we have here. First we have the some basic PHP application that uses the Symfony console component. It's really easy to implement Symfony console commands in standalone PHP application. You just need to instance new application, create comments, and just add the comments and register it in one simple method to your PHP application. What it looks like in a terminal, you just go PHP, application PHP. If you develop with Symfony, it's the same like running bin console. Here you run PHP, application PHP, and you have all the console commands. You can see hello world console command that is registered here. It's every console command needs to extend Symfony console command. You need to define the default name for the console command. You need to configure it, set a description, set help, set aliases, or whatever you want, and just implement execute method. And if you run PHP, application, and hello world, you get hello world output. If you have longer console command names, Symfony component is creates one alias by default with the first letters of each command word, with each command part. If it's the if it's the only command with those first letters. Let's jump to other example. Sorry. Okay, here we have the implementation of console commands in Symfony application, where it's mostly used. Here you have comments. They need to follow the namespace of source application and command. The app bundle is removed in the newer versions of Symfony. This is Symfony 6.0 or 6.1. And this is default way to configure it, which is commented in Symfony documentation, where you need to extend the command, you need to define the command name, you need to configure it in configure method, and say what needs to be executed. The other way is to implement it in PHP 8.1 way, where you don't need to configure a default name. You have the new annotations in PHP 8.1, like in attributes. You need to define attributes for these Symfony console commands. You need to define name, description, maybe aliases if you have those, and you can set it to hidden. Maybe you have some console commands that you don't want to be listed when you type Symfony bin console. So in this way you need to just implement the execute method. And the third way is the way I prefer, where you define it as a service, where you don't when you don't define console name in the like property, you define it in services configuration, where you send your name as a tag. So when you run bin console, PHP bin console, okay, you see all the commands grouped by the namespace. Namespace is first part of definition, and automatically you have listed all the aliases for each console command. Let's jump to next example. And in next example, I showed how you can define arguments and options for the command itself. Mostly you have some options and some arguments that you define, so every command can run multiple jobs depending on those variables. And difference between arguments and options are pretty much, they're pretty much similar. For arguments, you need to follow the exact order of defining it. And in options, you just call the key and value. And for arguments, only value, you pass only value without the key. And there is a joke that in programming, there are only two hard things. This is invalidating caches, defining variable names, and exception offset by 1. So I created one command that generates variable names for you. If you run PHP bin console, you have those this console command listed here, and if you want to see which arguments needs to be passed, you run generate variable and help. Help is available by default when creating console command, and you here see that you have first argument is word count, and the second argument is a variable count. How many words you want to have in your variable, and how many variables you need to generate. Under that you have the options that are available by default, as I said, help, quiet, version, verbosity level, etc. And if you want to run a generated variable, and let's say we want 3 words, those 3 words, we get generated variable with 3 words. It gets words from lorem ipsum, of course. If you want to have multiple variables, you just pass the other argument, which is 5. And if you can see, for the arguments, we pass only value without the key itself and name itself. And if you want to have it in other case, let's say snake, case is snake, you have those in a snake case, or maybe kebab, you have kebab case. But if you pass wrong argument, wrong value in your option, you get the camel case, which is set as default value here. So you can use those variables and arguments and options as whatever you want to use them. And imagination is your only limit. So let's go to the next example. Here we defined create user command. In this example, what I wanted to see, what I wanted to show are the question helper and format helper, which is really nice because you can run PHP bin console and create user, for example, user create, and it asks you for the username. You can say user123. It asks you for the password, and this is one great thing, that input can be hidden, and for password we just enter it and it's hidden. You can have choice question where you need to choose between one of presented options, and if you select wrong one, it tells you that it's invalid and gets back to the first question. And let's say mail. For city, there is a really great thing is autocomplete. So you can say Zagreb, you can say Osijek, you can say Rijeka, for example. You have the array, you need to define array of possible options, but that array can be created dynamically. For example, first question is please enter a country, and upon selecting a country, you can create API call that gets all the cities for that country and populate command in the runtime. So and also if you enter any value that is not defined, it will be totally valid. Let's say Valpo as a city. And do you want to create a user? There is a question, there is a validation question which defaults for like every bash command. You can say y, you can say yes, you can say n, you can say no. By default, it is no in my command. And let's say we don't want to create this user, and we get user not created. This is a styled output, and you can style it whatever you want. You can create tables, you can create error messages, you can create whatever you want. And for example, let's say that we want to create user with user 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to create some password. We say that it's the mail. We create city Zagreb. And do you want to create? Let's say yes. And user is created. One other great thing that you can create is you can define is the verbosity level. As I said, every console command has default options. Like verbosity level, you can say V, you can say VVV for very verbose, and you can say VVVV for debug. And you can define what to output when you have verbose level, let's say verbose 1, and you can say user 2. You can enter password, you can say it's the mail, and you can enter Zagreb, and continue with user creation, yes. And since we ran the command with verbose level, you get the table with output with created user. So you are really free to do whatever you want. You get really many helpers with Symfony console component out of the box, and you can use those whatever way you want. I just use here question helper and formatter helper, which are the most popular and mostly used helpers, but there are really many options. And for example, let's go to next step. Sorry, 05. And if you ask what is the fun with Symfony console commands, fun lies in your imagination. So you can say beer drink because you're very thirsty, you get the beer, and that should be all. Unfortunately, beer is disappeared because we are waiting for Ivan to finish his lecture. But you have beer here, so help yourself. Any questions? Please.
Yeah, so in your example of the create user, you
Yeah.
have to be interactive with the shell.
Yeah.
In your example of the create user command, you have to be interactive with the shell, right? Is it possible to reuse the same command, but to invoke the arguments that you're going to be asked, such as the username, password, or whatever, and pass them as name arguments in the shell directly, so that you can use this?
Yes, you can, because you can call other commands from your command. And let's say if your password is blah blah, you can, depending on that input, you can call the other console command. So you don't need to have execute in all of the execution in execute command. You can call other commands if you define those as a service. Like I showed, you can define the console command as a service, and you can reuse it, call it whatever you want as a standard PHP service.
Thank you.
Yeah, please. You had a
Question I just wanted to say, to repeat the question for the audience.
Ah, okay.
But it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I have a question actually. Did you ever manage to package this whole command into a FAR release?
Sorry?
Into a FAR release, like one FAR file?
No, I didn't do that. I don't think that we .far file. Like composer.far if you install it locally. I didn't do that. You can, but I didn't try. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, please.
Where do you use it in practice, let's say?
I use it mostly when I need to run some cron jobs on server, because they're not depending on request or response. They're time depending on set time, like all cron jobs. So on set time I call some command, for example for sending emails, for importing mostly for importing or exporting, sending stuff that are not related to user request.
Cron job calls directly the command and the command executes.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Do you use it for testing, let's say, or?
No, I don't use it for testing, but you can test the console commands. You can run tests, you can define what arguments you want to send, and just run standard unit test on Symfony console commands. Yeah.
It's also good for proof of concept. That when I at least use it as proof of concept, when I try to do some proof of concept or something, I don't want to build everything that the testing stuff on it. And just easiest to just put that chunk of code into the command and run it.
Yeah. You don't need to define routing, you don't need to define user access or everything, you just run the code. Yeah. So if that's all, thank you all for listening. We have a short break, you can grab a beer. Everybody that's live, please wait 10 minutes if you want, and we are shortly back. Yeah, 7 o'clock, perfect.
Moram nešto pričati. Ću ja držati opet dalje.
Ume stoji dobro, zapravo sam na komandu.
Malo sam početka, da, brzo, brzo. Da, budim ja, ne vidim.
Ješ puški? Moram ići nešto ne mogu tu neći, možda riga. Bito da si mene sluša, bito da si mene sluša. On zna. To me zanima. A što najgore to njemu je, imaš live na YouTube. Ja se snimam. Hoće mi snimiti. A mi će mi sami ćemo. To me zanima, zato što ovo neki prvi počinu, neki korist, to me zanima. Neko li se zove nije korist. Hoćeš mi pljuvati, okej. Opljuvat će Džinu, ali moram poslušati. Pljuvat ono to mogu. Opljuvat će Džinu, ali će opisati kako je on koristi na budu okej. Ja sam
Mislim, imam ideja, ove stvari da čovjek znanje nastavio. Mislim da treba malo pjesa. Čisto se generacija
Thank you.
Može? Okay, hi, hello everyone one more time. As both of my colleagues before, I would also like to welcome you here. It's really good to have you here after 2 long years. It's been quite a while, so thank you all for coming. I don't have a vanity slide, so I'll just say 2 words about myself. I've been working as PHP developer in Netgen for 8 years, I believe, so far. And lately my latest concerns were how to make the process of doing project and doing development a little bit easier for all of us involved. So yeah, this is not going to be such technical talk as Bornas was. He was really delving into code. I will show some code as well, but it will be a little bit different approach maybe. First, if you could just give me a show of hands, how many of you use Jira? Yeah, okay. How many of you who use Jira love Jira? That's kind of expected. Not a single hand was raised. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I also did a little survey between my colleagues and friends from other companies who also work in IT, and I asked them, what is the biggest source of frustration? What has been the biggest source of frustration in the last time? And there were quite different answers, you know. Some said, you know, it's difficult times were ahead, but there was one answer that was really prevalent about them all. So yeah, I kind of expected, but I'm joking, of course. I'm not going to compare Jira to any of this, but yeah, it's true that Jira is often a source of frustration. It's a tool that project managers absolutely love. It's great for them. They can get an overview of what's happening, what's going on. And it's also the source of frustration for developers because we are not box pushers. We don't want to do that. But OK, I will show one example of that. A colleague just, this is a great video. It's TikTok, excuse me, but it's pretty cool.
Hey, Dom. Yeah? What did you do yesterday? I fixed 3 bugs, scoped 2 tasks, and implemented 3 new features. But have you updated your Jira trackers? No, sorry. That's the same as you did nothing.
And so that's how most of developers feel usually when working with Jira. So I heard that, I felt that pain myself. So I decided to take a closer look at what actually is the process, what is so frustrating, what is going on there. So basically, it's always the same. You always do pretty much the same thing. You move some boxes, you comment on issue, you reassign. It's always the same, always boring, always repetitive. It's like we are not doing anything useful with our time, right? I mean, to be honest, we are not box pushers, we are developers. We want to work with PHP, we want to work with Git, we want to work with, okay, not JavaScript, but Twig or YAML or whatever, you know. So we don't want to do this. But then I thought to myself, if it's really so repetitive, that means it can be automated, right? So I thought to myself, this looks like a job for me. So if anything I learned in the past 2 years, it was how to do proper research, right? So what do? We do proper research. We go and read some peer-reviewed articles, read expert advice, and we find out what is the best way to do something. Or in other words, while this loops, we will see that it actually boils down to one simple stuff. Yeah, I clicked the first 2 links on Google. That was pretty much it. But it's pretty much the same, right? It's research. So Jira automation, that is one of the first topics we will talk about here. This is something that's built in Jira. It offers a lot of capability to streamline the process of a project, right? So it has three main components. One is trigger, the other is condition, and the third one is action. I will show a little bit later how to set up all of them, but trigger is something that happens inside Jira that triggers the automation flow to get it working. Condition is something that you can set up which conditions the issue must satisfy to be affected by the flow. And finally, the action is the action that happens on the issue itself. This proved to be to make project managers and developers. Developers didn't have to do a lot of clicking around Jira, and the project managers knew that the issue will always be in a correct state. So I will now show just a simple automation demo. It's like this is trigger, this is a condition, this is an action. So we'll set up live on one of the project just to see how it works, just to get a feel of it. So let me just switch to, where is it? Here. Okay. So yeah, now I will have to create a task for myself. So just picture me in a shirt and tie or whatever project managers wear. Demo automation, right? Yeah, actually it's not visible because this is Jira. So select it for development. I will assign it to myself. Let's go back here. Okay, so we have here the task. I have it to do, but now we will set up some automation. So let's create a rule and see. Okay, so what do we need? We need for the issue to be moved to in progress once a developer starts work, right? So branch created will be the trigger. Because we have Jira connected to Bitbucket, it will be automatic, it will get the webhook back. So save. So let's add a condition as well. Status is one of backlog. Maybe someone skipped a step or two, and select it for development. We don't want anything to go back if it shouldn't be. And then we will add an action, transition issue to in progress. Save. Name automation. Branch created. Move to in progress. This was the first step I did. This was the first one, and this proved to be a game changer because it's a lot easier to make a developer push an empty branch than to make him click in Jira. It's a lot easier to explain to them. So, okay. Sorry?
To them, not to us.
Yeah. Okay, so we have it here. Okay. And now let's go here. Okay. So the task was, let me just see. Okay. Git checkout. Git track. Okay, so now I just pushed an empty branch. And hopefully it should have moved. Yeah, right. So now it's in progress. I didn't have to click anything around Jira. I didn't have to worry about. Yeah, okay, but we can move further more, right? We can do some more. One important thing, there's an audit log. So we can also track what happened. That's pretty cool. It's actually pretty helpful, especially if it fails. Sometimes when you have more complex automation rules, if it fails, this is pretty good because an audit log will tell you what's happening. Okay, let's create one more. Pull request created. Condition is status is, maybe someone skipped a step, but shouldn't. Let's say something like this. And new action, transition issue to dev review. Sounds reasonable. Yeah. We are created. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay. So let's see if we do this. It should hopefully move it. We're still in progress, right? Okay, this is not really important right now. Create pull request. Okay. Yeah, now it's in dev review. So the only thing a developer now needs to do is assign it to reviewer. If you have any specific rules for that, you can also make it so that it gets automatically assigned to someone. For example, let's move to the next one. So maybe if we have, okay, return to list, create rule. So pull request merged. And we can move new action, transition action to testing. And we can add component new action, assign issue to, let's say, this is our project manager, so he will get it. We are merged. Turn it on. Okay, so we'll still in dev review, and we will now merge this. Now let's see. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Yeah, now it's in testing and it's assigned to Sasha. Now this will naturally, this is just an example. This will probably heavily depend on your flow, on what you're doing, what kind of people you have in your team. But this is an example of what can really be done efficiently with just configuring Jira. You don't need to do anything there. You will notice that in all of this process, I, as a developer, only had to assign a reviewer for a pull request. That's the only thing. So that really cuts down on the time developers have to spend in Jira, and it cuts down on their frustration. Okay, now we can move further on. Where is it? Here, yeah, okay. Okay, but so this is all when we are doing actions in Jira. But of course, sometimes we want for Jira to be aware of something we are doing externally. For example, if we are doing deployment with something, we use deployer, and we want Jira to be aware that actually we are deploying something. That's where the automation webhook trigger comes in. So Jira also has a trigger that is not just an action within Jira. It also has a trigger which is a webhook. Basically, it's just an endpoint where you put the post request to it, and it will trigger the automation. It start the automation. This is one example from our project. We will do something a little bit easier, but this is what we do. We release next unreleased version and create next version, which will be for the further tasks. This is live from our project, one of our projects. Okay, let's try to do that as well, right? Okay, automation, return to list, create rule, incoming webhook. So, as it said, it's just a simple way, do HTTP post request to this, and it should work. I will just copy this. My PHP store. Yeah, this. Okay. And I will save it. And what we want to do with we new condition, if status is equals ready to deploy, new action, transition action to, let's say, where is it? Done. Right, so pretty simple. Deploy, turn it on. Okay, now let's see. We are here. Now the Sasha did some testing. He said it's ready to deploy. Now we'll go here again. There was already talk about deployers, so I hope most of you are familiar with deployer, how it works. I just created, let me just show you. This is a simple deployer task that basically it doesn't do anything smart, if you can see here. It just does a post request to this URL, and that's it. It doesn't do anything else. So let's do that. Jira deploy prod, executing task, and let's see what's going on here. Did I save? Deploy, log, some errors. Okay, so no issues from webhook associated items. Let me just check this. Deploy status equals ready to deploy. Why did not? Yeah, okay, let's not now dwell on this part, but that's basically it. It should work. It probably have some type or some error or something. So that's part of that.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
How did you know which task are you talking about when you submitted the webhook?
It doesn't at this point. That was the condition, actually. It just, maybe that was what I was missing, the JQL query. You can also set the JQL query on which tasks it will run. That's what I was missing. You're actually pretty right. Here. Yeah, here. That's what I was missing. Status. What did I do now? Run JQL. Status equals. Deploy. Query. Yeah, one issue found. As you can see, it can also be issues can be provided in the webhook body, and it can also contain no issues if you don't want to work upon issues. But this should work now. Let's see. Publish changes. Deploy. Audit log success. So it probably should have moved. Yeah. Thanks for that, actually. So yeah, that's how it should work. Okay, Jira. Okay, so that's about it for that part. There is one more part where it really gets interesting, where it's not really about automation, but what we can do with Jira. So Jira also has possibility to define a webhook. So you can define a webhook in Jira. So webhook is actually just a callback on which you want to get information when something is done in Jira. So the previous example was when we want Jira to trigger some action based on what we are doing. And this is when we want to do something based on what is done in Jira, right? So it's not really something, it's not really something that's complicated. You just set up a simple Jira webhook. You put in your URL, because it has to be URL at which you will receive. And it has pretty good documentation, actually, on what the payload is. Yeah, so this will be pretty much the payload. And let's just see, and we'll do, this is a different, but for this one, you have to set up a webhook, you have to have admin rights, complete admin rights to Jira. So I will demo this on my own Jira, not the Netgen one. So I create here two webhooks. One is ZgPHP. So this is on our server, local dev server, where we will just get updates when any issue is updated. So I didn't limit it to anything. We will just get update. And I also used request bin for testing. So this is pretty cool. You can just put in from request bin the URL, the endpoint, and it will also get it there, and you can see what happens. So if we move this somewhere, here we go. Here we created a new request was received on this, and we can see what happened. We can see the user. We can see what was the issue. We can see the where was it, the change log as well. Change log. So what changed? Selected for developments to in progress. What I implemented was just a simple webhook, which received a request and it just put in data about which issue and which user was did the action. I just put it into the database, so it's probably, yeah. So this is it. So this is these webhooks are usually used for if you want to do some reporting, exporting of Jira statuses or something like that. If you need to anything to process what condition is which condition your Jira is. So this is just a simple example, and as you can see, just really simple. And request bin and the documentation are your friends here. It's really good. Okay, so now we also have one more. That might be enough. So, but also sometimes we want to do more with Jira. We want to manipulate Jira completely. That's where the REST API comes in. So the Jira has a built-in REST API, and it has huge capabilities. You can basically do anything with it. You can get any, of course, it depends on user permissions. You have to set up a token and everything. But if the permissions are correctly placed, you can do pretty much anything you want with it. You can add worklogs, remove worklogs, read worklogs, read statuses, create new release version, release the version, and stuff like that. Basically, anything you want. So now I will just show simple example of where I will read the data that came from the webhook, right? So from the webhook, we know now that a developer with a certain ID did something on a task. And let's say that by the end of the day, we want to make sure that the developer who did some changes on the task already also logged some hours to it, right? Because that's how we get paid. We need to log hours. So let's see. It's going to be a command. So it's going to be really simple one. We are just going to get the data by the end, at the end of the day, like Borna mentioned in a cron job.
Can you zoom a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I will go to a second. Yeah, I'm trying. Better? Yeah. So we will go there and we will just get user email address. For that, we will use this endpoint. It says user with that account ID. And further on, we will see if that user has any worklogs on that issue. So this is just a different one, different endpoint. It goes to issue with issue key and worklog. So as you can see, it's pretty simple. It's nothing especially wise. But let's see if that actually works. How did I call it? App report, right? Yeah. Okay, so I dumped a lot of stuff here. So this is the webhook data, just to know what's going on. This is the user information. So this is from the first endpoint. This is from the get user email address, right? So I dumped whole user data that we received from the Jira. We will only use the email address, nothing else in this particular case. And this is the worklogs. We can see that we don't have any worklogs on that issue. So now I will try to add some worklog. I actually haven't done that, but let me see. Where is it? Here? Yeah. Okay, Jira, sure. Worklog, log work. Okay, So now let's see if anything different will happen. Yeah. Now we have a work logs, and now we have who is the author, which is the URL for the work log itself. And with that we can compare if it's the same email address, so we can know if that developer who did some work also logged some hours. So this is just an example of something that can be done. And basically that's it. I just want, this whole talk was just to make you aware that Jira doesn't really have to suck. It can be made easier for both developers and project managers. And I think that everyone involved in a project is much happier when you have the process streamlined like this. None of this is something that will be 100% useful all the time. And it will not something that will fit every project and every issue. There will always be exceptions. You have to be prepared for that. And when implementing this, for example, when I first started on automation, there were a lot of complaints from my colleagues. Oh, this is really creating more work for us. It's not working. Can we turn it off? I decided not to turn it off, but to talk to them. So this is also something that you have to keep in mind. You have to talk to everyone involved. You have to involve project manager. You have to involve other developers. And you have to find a solution that works best for you. And that's about it, I think. Yeah. Thank you. Any questions?
Do you use it in all of your projects here?
No, not in all projects. I started adding this for some of my own project, my projects here, and it's basically company policy and spreading this across all the projects. It's tough to, it's tough to backport this to all projects, but for new projects we are trying to do that. Yeah.
Is it linear or can you make structure of tasks?
Sorry?
Is it linear just for specific tasks, or can you make a structure of, let's say?
I believe you can make a structure. Yeah,
so you can make the whole project, like that one task goes to another, to another, to another.
Yeah. You can do it. Sure.
I see it works great if the code is kept on the Bitbucket, and this is all part of the Atlassian family. But do you know if it can be implemented the same way if the code is kept, let's say, on GitLab? Can these webhooks and all other actions work as well? Yeah, so the question was that whether if this can work on other stuff except the Bitbucket. I'm not sure about GitLab. We do not use GitLab, but it works with the GitHub. Without any issues, it works with GitHub, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Let's say that you use the automation when you create a branch, and then you move the branch to progress, the task to progress, and then whenever you open the PR, it goes to overview or whatever stuff. Is it possible in these actions to register how much time you have been in a certain step? Because Jira has some plugins where you can track your time, and some project managers ask you to track your time. So is it possible to do it with automation itself, or do you have to manually do it? I do not believe that it's possible with automation process, but it can be developed or implemented in some other ways. I mean, you can do a lot of different things here. You can also, in one project, we even had, it was external project, external Jira, and they had process where they actually input work log time into Git commit message. So it can also be read, and it can also do something like that.
Okay. We use Tempo plugin for time tracking in Jira, and Tempo has this time tracking recommendations. So it depending on when did you put some task in a certain status, it will recommend when you need to log your time, it will recommend how much time you spend. So it's not a full automation, but it can help as well. Like quick reminder. Yeah.
I've just thought about what you asked. Maybe you could even do something like what you asked. For example, if it changes status, then we can see when was it last updated or something like that. Because in all of these conditions and rules, in automation, you can use something that Jira calls smart values, and usually you get a lot of information. You can do. I didn't even show that, but let's just here. Where was it? not that one, but this one, return to list. When PR create, yeah, you can also add comment to issue, for example. This is one of the example of the smart value where you get pull request URL, and you can add that. And basically, also if it's automation that works with some issues, you also get issue details here that you can work with. Yeah.
But also, I think that even if it could be done to track time with Jira automation, I don't think it's smart because some tasks take few days, but not all the time when you are developing. You are developing 8 hours a day, but the task is in development for 10 days, let's say.
So project shouldn't have a task.
Yeah, of course, definitely. But time tracking is mandatory for billing.
Yeah.
And we need to be really specific with time tracking when billing the clients.
Yeah. That's why it's better to have, not to have a full automation. You have a recommendation, okay, maybe you spend on this 4 hours, but you know actually it's...
But at least you can, like an example, at least you can maybe try to force developers at least to log the hours, remind them to log the hours by the end of the day or something like that. You had.
You connect the tasks in Jira with the branches. Does it have to be the same as the tasks number, or
Yeah,
it needs to start with it?
It's got a task ID, yeah. So it starts with task ID. It actually has to have task ID, I believe, somewhere in the name. We usually use always the same task ID and then dash and then explanation. We also have Captain Hook set up to enforce this for every developer who works on a project, so they can't name branch anything other than this. Same goes for Git commits, because we have also a Captain Hook rule that Git commit also has to start with task ID. Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll have a closing word.
Am I on? First question, does anybody want to have a lightning talk today? Or you're all ready to hit the bar? No? Not really? Okay, so for those of you who don't know, usually every meetup that we had, we put it up on Joined In, and then we had all the talks listed, and we invite all of you who come to meetups or join them via YouTube live streams to rate our speakers, to help them out in their future speaking careers. And what we used to do before Corona happened, every meetup we would have a raffle where we would pick all the comments from last 3 meetups talks that you rated on Joined In, and then you could win a prize like JetBrains PHP Storm license or something else from our sponsors. So I invite you all today to I'm not sure if the QR code works, I didn't check it, hopefully.
It works.
Okay. So please, if you have the time, rate the talks. I think you guys will appreciate it. Also, I would like to thank Netgen for hosting us again. And next month we will be in Q Agency. It's going to be also Thursday of the month, so May 19th. And I hope I'll see you all there. So, yeah, that's it.